This right here is a fully 3D printed color lithophane that can be made on any regular 3D printer. Let me explain how this amazing process works that I found here at the Midwest Rap Festival 2022 in Goshen, Indiana. Guten Tag everybody, I'm Stefan and welcome to CNC Kitchen. I've got something to admit, but I never printed a lithophane in my whole 3D printing career. I always thought they were a bit cheesy, I don't know. Though this already changed after I met Jason Bruce at this year's Midwest Rap Festival, where he explained to me how he is able to print full color lithophanes in just one go. So many of you might have already printed a regular lithophane, where you upload an image to a service that creates a grayscale image and converts that to an STL with different thicknesses at different locations. After printing, you put them in front of a light. The thicker the material, the more light will get blocked, making that spot darker. This is how you build up the image. People even put color images behind that lithophane, making them kind of colored. This method right here is different. Fully 3D printed in one go and just looks stunning. Jason stacks layers of cyan, magenta and yellow filament on top of each other to create color and then prints a regular lithophane on top of that to set the luminosity, so how bright a pixel shines. There are 5 color layers, where cyan, magenta, yellow and white can be arbitrarily combined, resulting in around 600 different uses of color. The normal lithophane layers extend that to over 20,000 different colors and helps smoothen the pixels. Yes, pixels, because in order to make that method work, your image needs to get pixelated, and each pixel needs to be printable. The color resolution of the image is therefore dependent on your nozzle size that you're using. Jason said that he got great results with a 0.4mm nozzle, where each pixel would be 0.8 by 0.8mm. But if you want to further increase resolution, you can even go down to a 0.25mm nozzle, with the downside of having even more retractions, which can be challenging for some machines. The thing is that the lithophane layer responsible for the contrast don't get pixelated, so way finer details can be resolved, giving the final print a significantly higher perceived resolution. The reason for using cyan, magenta and yellow filament is that since you shine light through the color lithophane, you need to work with a subtractive color space, so CMYK. Every color layer will filter out a section of the white light until you end up with the color you need. That's different from the RGB or red, green and blue colors that we use on screens, for example. RGB is an additive color space. Pixels that shine are next to each other and the combination of their light give you the final color. Working with CMYK is challenging because getting pure cyan, magenta and yellow filament isn't that easy. Fortunately, Printed Solid came along and manufactured PLA filaments in these colors, which work perfectly with that method. If you don't have proper filaments, of course, colors will be off. After the first mediocre results, I found that 3D Jake's yellow, sky blue and pastel pink materials do work quite well and might be a source of material here in Europe. But here's the thing, getting G-code and STLs for this process isn't easy and isn't something you find in a slicer. This is why Jason worked with Thomas Brooks from LithophaneMaker.com to make an online tool that easily creates all the files necessary. On LithophaneMaker.com, you upload your image and get a zip file with all the STLs you need. Since not everyone has the printed solid filaments, they even include different palettes with materials that might be easier accessible for you. Suppose you have a printer that supports at least 4 materials, or a mosaic palette for example. In that case, it's super easy because you load the files, assign the colors, set the proper extrusion width and a bunch of other settings, and are good to go. If you only have a regular printer, it's still possible, but you need to do the material changes manually. But since there are only 16 per color lithophane, it's doable. I haven't tried it myself, but I think you just have to increase the numbers of extruders in Prusa Slicer and set the tool changing G-code to M600. Let me know in the comments if you have already tried this. This workflow will let you print color lithophanes in one go, with just amazing results. To reduce the number of color changes, these lithophanes are printed flat, reducing the resolution a little compared to the usual standing position. However, as you have seen, these images still look great in the end, and if you want to increase resolution, you could always use a smaller nozzle. Jason told me that he and Thomas had to use some tricks to make them easily printable and well working. The first versions were tough to print because each of the pixels had to stick to the print bed, which can be tricky, but they came up with the idea to simply print one layer of white before the color layers to create a perfect base to print on. Then it's also important to work with quite thin layers to make sure that not too much light gets blocked and colors are accurate. Default settings in the web tool are 0.1mm for all layers, but Jason told me that he usually even goes down to 0.08mm for the color layers and 0.05 for the luminance layers. Talking to Jason was such a pleasure. It's so amazing to see how skilled makers can combine 3D printing, color theory, material science, and application development to give us as a community easy to use tools for our projects. Everything they developed and shared is available for free, and I'd highly advise you to check it out and let me and them know how it worked out for you. Not only when you're printing lithophanes, it's very important to have a print bed that is flat, easy to print on, and later remove parts. This is why, if you're looking for a new flex bed solution, you should definitely check out Wham Bam, who supported my trip to Murph this year. They're not only the creators of the flexible build plate system for filament and resin printers, but also the Mutant tool swapping system and foldable hotbox if you want to enclose your machine for high temp materials or just a cold basement. Sponsors like Wham Bam help me to cover cool projects like this one, so check them out using the link below.